Hi, thank you for joining me in an episode of Chat Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad, and we take a dive into the world of sports. This particular episode is my recap of this past weekend's actions from the NFL and kind of give you my results for my picks. I think there's just something in the air this weekend, maybe being the first weekend of October. The planets were aligned, a particular situation. The atmospheric pressure of Saturn and Jupiter's magnetic pull have skewed my picks and made the New York teams winning again. One LA team not performing what they should be doing. Things changing in the Windy City. And I'm going 7-9 this week. Not particularly happy with this one. A lot of these games are a lot closer than a lot of people I think anticipated for, especially me. And let's just go ahead and just start going over the results. And let's go with the last Thursday between Cincinnati hosting Jacksonville. Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence meeting for the first time at the pro level. And Jacksonville once again proved to be a very versatile first half team dominating another opponent. They were up on Cincinnati 14-0 at the half. And then I guess Joe Burrow did some type of rah-rah speech, or he's able to find a way to ignite his team without passing to Jamar Chase, and hurry up and got the edge on the Jaguars, and the Bengals able to hold on to beat the Jaguars 24-21. Moving on to Sunday with the Lions and the Bears. Nagy, for most of that week, would not say who was going to be it. All three quarterbacks were in discussion. So you have a broken or still injured Andy Dalton and veteran quarterback that's way past his prime, that's not a starter anymore, and a young quarterback who got demolished last week and spent more time on the turf than he should have been. Nagy said, okay, Fields is in, but he also found out he wasn't going to call the offensive plays. It was Laser, the offensive coordinator, which I think is a blessing in disguise for the Bears fan, because Justin Fields was showing some abilities and actually was getting in sync with Mooney for most of the game and hitting some very deep drives. The Bears had a decent running attack. Montgomery had over 100 yards with 2 scores. Fields did throw a pick, but they were dominating the Lions that first half, 14-0. Jared Goff was bringing back the Lions, as seems to be the case for the Lions this year. They always seem to come back in the second half, make things a little interesting. I think it's a little too late, as the Bears end up winning 24-14. Down hot Atlanta between Washington and Atlanta. And I said this one is a 50-50 matchup because the Washington defense is not living up to the hype. I don't know what's going on with the Atlanta team, but the Washington defense was no good that day. They coughed up 30 points to Matt Ryan. Of course, it is Matt Ryan. He is a competent quarterback who'll be able to find the correct spots to pick apart a team. But Heineke has now showed to be a quality quarterback for the Washington football team. And he was able to throw for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I'll give it to Heineke. Heineke's actually starting to become a very good quality quarterback. And Washington escaped Atlanta with a 34-30 win. Up in Western New York, the Bills Mafia are happy. And I said, the Bills will stampede through the Texans, and it was a stampede. Texans had no answers. Josh Allen only threw for 2 touchdowns, so his performance, he didn't have that, fantasy godlike level he had last week, but it was a 40-0 shellacking the Bills put on the Texans. In Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, flying high, were hosting the Carolina Panthers, who were without McCaffrey in the running attack. The running attack was still somewhat there for the Panthers because Sam Darnold kind of took over, and he actually ran for a score. It was definitely a very close game in the first half. Panthers are up 14-13, but the third quarter was all Dallas. all Zeke. Zeke was running amok. Dak still threw for 4 touchdowns, but Zeke had long drives, long runs that set up very short passes for easy scores. Zeke had 143 yards with a touchdown. But the Panthers still came back as Sam Darnold still threw for 300 and over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So there's still some questions on the Dallas defense because they still coughed up 28 points. But if Dallas's offense continues the way it's going, it's I think Dallas's best defense is their offense, and Dallas ended up winning against Carolina, 36-28. In Miami, this was another one. I think both teams were kind of about equal in terms of how they're looking at, but I gave the edge to Carson Wentz and the Colts. And Carson Wentz didn't disappoint. He almost had 230 yards in the air, threw for 2 touchdowns. Taylor ran for another 103 yards for a touchdown as the Colts were able to cruise past the Dolphins 27-17. At U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, I figured the Vikings would continue their march and be able to continue on. I mean, especially what they did with Seattle, especially that second half last week, and Cleveland's defense wasn't going to be much not as huge of a factor were against the Bears, but it definitely was a defensive showing, so I give credit to that. But Cleveland's defense is a lot better. Minnesota, made that one drive and in the first quarter, and after that was it for Minnesota. They just goose eggs the rest of the game. And like I said, that end of the first half was like a baseball game. It's like the Cleveland Indians leading the Minnesota Twins 11-7. And it's just the final score is 14-7 Cleveland. I mean, it was a defensive showdown, ugly affair, but a win's a win. Cleveland's 3-1, Minnesota's 1-3. Down the Big Easy, the Saints continue to be Wichita. James Winston has yet to reemerge himself as the same as he did in Week 1 when they played in Jacksonville and blew out Aaron Rodgers. The Saints team has not lived up to that hype, and I don't know what they have to do to correct this ship. But Daniel Jones threw for over 400 yards against that Saints defense, plus 2 touchdowns. Galladay had 116 yards receiving. I mean, that Saints secondary needs some help. They need a better scheme. They get a better pass rushing, because the Giants came back and beat the Saints in OT 27-21. And like I said, the planetary alignment was a certain way that both New York teams performed well, because the other team in the Big Apple, the Jets, hosted the Titans, and the Jets defense showed up. It was, some sight to see. They were, Derrick Henry still had 157 yards on the ground, but it was enough that Zach Wilson did enough also in the air. I mean, Corey Davis had 111 yards receiving with a touchdown. And the Jets won in overtime, 27-24. Like I said, there's something in the air. I guess it's the first weekend of October. We're going to now we're going to head to Philadelphia, where the Eagles are hosting the Chiefs. The Chiefs are looking to rebound from the travesty they had at home against the Chargers. So taking on the Eagles should be something easy for them. I expected Mahomes return back to form. Mahomes still threw a pick, but he still did a bunch of Mahomes throws, especially underhands in the line of scrimmage to score. A great play that Travis Kelce was running towards the center, throwing up his hands like, "What's the play? What's the play?" It was a whole ploy for a passing touchdown. So, I mean, the Chiefs were pulling off all the stops, but their defense needs help. Jalen Hurts was able to throw all over them for 387 yards and 2 scores. But when your team has Tyreek Hill, I mean, that man had 186 yards receiving on 11 catches, mind you, and 3 of those went to touchdowns. So I think for the Chiefs, their best defense is their offense. And as long as their offense is humming, the defense doesn't have to work too hard. And it's just the fact of, not making too many mistakes on the defensive side. Chiefs escape Philadelphia 42-30. The first game this weekend in SoFi was the Rams hosting the Cardinals. Both of them are undefeated, sitting on top of the NFC West. And we all thought, the Rams would continue, especially after their win against the Bucs. But I guess they had a hangover because they definitely didn't really show up too well. Stafford had early picks. He did have 280 yards in the air and 2 touchdowns, but the Cardinals defense stepped in when they had to, contained it. I mean, Kyler Murray was all over the place. He threw for 2 touchdowns as well. I mean, Chess Edmonds had 120 yards on the ground, and the Cardinals remain the only undefeated team right now in the league, beating the Rams 37-20. On the other NFC West showdown up there in Santa Clara, the 49ers are hosting the Seahawks. This one definitely went back and forth. And Russell Wilson tallied 3 touchdowns. Jimmy G got hurt with a calf injury. Trey Lance came in, but it wasn't enough, and the Seahawks able to hold off on the 49ers 28-21. In the Mile High City, the Baltimore Ravens went to Denver Broncos, and that second quarter was a pretty much scoring fest. That was what all it took to win this game. An excellent pass by Lamar Jackson to Hollywood Brown for 49 yards. He was looking back into the sun, dove, and caught it. He was also all by himself. So the Ravens are looking very good right now, and could be another team that could be watch out for in the AFC, and they won in Denver 23-7. Steelers and Packers was a historic matchup between these two, as both Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger passed or tied Dan Marino in a particular stat on this day. Aaron Rodgers tied Marino for 6 all-time with passing touchdowns, while Big Ben moved past Marino for sole possession of 6th place for the all-time passing yards. That's about the only highlight Big Ben had. He was not very mobile, and it's there's some things that have to change in Pittsburgh's offense because right now they're not doing what they should be doing. Najee Harris is unable to really get that enough spark or alleviate some of the pressure off of Big Ben. And Aaron Rodgers, it's Rodgers' neighborhood. He decides who wins, and he's like, no one's coming to my house to win. So Packers beat the Steelers 27-17. The game of the night of Sunday night was Tom Brady's return to New England. First time as a visitor after 20 years up there. I mean, with all the Super Bowl history that, Brady and Belichick have together, then Brady leaves and wins another one all by himself. So Belichick has something really to prove that, he's part of the reason why Tom Brady's the way he is. And it was a struggle for most of the game for the Buccaneers. I mean, halftime 7-6 Pats. Wasn't until the third quarter that the Buccaneers were able to really start to pull away a little bit. But New England was not making it easy. On this day, TB12 became the all-time passing leader, passing Drew Brees. Now he has over 80,000 yards passing. He's not done yet. Drew Brees was on hand, showing his love for him. And Tom Brady was able to escape Foxborough with a victory, 19-17. And last night's game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. That just sounds funny saying those two like that. And for the second game in SoFi for the weekend, I thought, Chargers get let down, maybe have a little, hangover from their big win in KC. but it was the Raiders that had the hangover after their overtime victory last week against Miami, and that the Chargers defense just stifled the Raiders that first half. The Chargers up 21-0 halftime, but then the Raiders doing their Raiders typical thing, start coming back. Made it interesting. And, put up 14 points before Eckler was able to just run amok. He had 117 yards. Ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown. I mean, he was all over the place. And he just took the Chargers. And Bear was also just picking apart the Raiders. I mean, he was doing what he had to do. And the Raiders secondary got a little decimated with injuries. And it showed there were some few key plays that were blown coverages. And Aber had 3 touchdowns in the air. So the Chargers right now are a very hard team. Looks like to be, I think they're the top team in the AFC West right now, not the Chiefs. So it's definitely interesting. And like I said, the Chargers end up winning 28-14. Well, those are my picks. Those are the review. Like I said, I went 7-9 this past weekend. So hopefully next week I kind of do a little bit better. So I'll make sure I get that video out to you no later than Thursday before the kickoff at Thursday Night Football. Leave a comment. Let me know how well you did last week. What was your biggest surprise this past weekend? And like I said, Thursday I'll get you that my predictions for next week's NFL action. And you can smash that thumbs up for me. Give me a like. You can also subscribe if you wish. You subscribe, you make sure you hit that bell notification. Let you know next time I post a video. And I'll see you soon on Chat Sports Talk.